Croeso i chi gyd. Dewi Hughes ydw i, cyfarwyddwr gweithredol Pontio, a croeso i'r sesiwn rhanddeiliaid yma, sesiwn rhanddeiliaid Pontio. Wedyn, be di pwrpas y cyfarfod? Wel, fel da chi'n gweld lawr yn y ddinas, mae'r adeilad yn prysur codi allan o'r ddaear rwan, ac oeddwn i'n meddwl bod hwn yn gyfle gwych i ni ailgysylltu efo chi yn rhanddeiliaid ni i rhoi dipyn o ddiweddariad i chi amdan y prosiect a beth sy'n mynd ymlaen, ac i ddeud dipyn bach mwy wrthach chi amdan y prosiect. Mae'n siŵr bod rhan fwyaf o bobl yn y stafell yma yn dallt bod yna theatr a sinema newydd yn cael ei godi ym Mangor, ond mae yna fwy i Pontio hefyd. A mi fydda ni yn achub ar y cyfle pnawn yma i ddeitha chi ychydig bach mwy amdan hynny. Ar ddiwedd y cyfarfod, mi yda ni isio trio ffurfio grŵp rhanddeiliaid newydd. Da ni isio pobl i ymuno efo ni, i helpu ni yn ystod y cyfnod yma, i ni gael defnyddio chi, i drio syniadau yna chi, i siarad efo chi, i gadw y drafodaeth yn mynd yn ei flaen. Wedyn, ar ddiwedd y cyfarfod pnawn yma, fydd yna gyfle i chi mynegu diddordeb i fod ar y grŵp rhanddeiliad, a mi fydd hynny yn digwydd yn y stafell drws nesa. Mi fydd yna banad ar gael ar ddiwedd y cyfarfod, a mi fydd lle i chi gofnodi eich diddordeb i fod yn rhan o'r grŵp rhanddeiliad yn fanno. Reit, pnawn yma felly, mae gynnon ni 4 cyflwyniad i chi, cyflwyniad rhyw 10 munud yr un. Yn gyntaf gyd, mi fydd Dylan Roberts, cyfarwyddwr ystadau'r Brifysgol, yn siarad amdan yr adeilad ei hun. Wedyn, mi fydd Elena Roberts yn cyfarwyddwr artistig ni, yn siarad amdan y celfyddydau perfformio. Mi fydd Dr Andy Goodman yn deud gair wrthon ni ynghylch arloesedd a dylunio. A wedyn mi fydd James Goodman yn siarad ynghylch agweddau cymunedol y prosiect. Mi fydd yna gyfle ar ddiwedd pob cyflwyniad am ychydig o gwestiynau, ond ar ddiwedd y cyflwyniadau i gyd, mi fydda ni gyd yn dod yn ôl i fyny i'r llwyfan y fama, a mi fydd yna gyfnod i chi gofyn cwestiynau reit ar y diwedd cyn i ni cael yn panad. Os di pawb yn hapus felly, mi awn ni blaen a gofyn i Dylan os oes efo digon caredig i wneud i gyflwyniad. Diolch.
Plan da. Good afternoon. I'll apologise beforehand if some of you have seen some of these images before, but a lot of you will not have. So I'm going to present on the building itself. This first image is a really important image. It's from the other side of Daniel Road. Looking back, so in that position there, people would be standing in the middle of the car park opposite the Pontio side, looking back at the site and looking back at the main arts building of the university. I'll use this pointer, I hope you can see that red dot there. These facades here are actually natural stone. So you will have heard, I'm sure, in the press about the fact that we were over budget, tenders came in over budget, we've reduced costs on this project, but we still have natural stone over most of the important facades of the building. It's a limestone. If you look at the main arts building itself, it's suffering quite badly actually, with the sandstone eroding quite badly, so the limestone is much harder. This image is from the other direction on Daniel Road, looking back at the building. Best way perhaps of describing this building is a multi-storey building pulled across the hillside. The architects Grimshaw are working with a company called Atkins. Atkins are a large multidisciplinary design organisation that Grimshaw are subcontractors to them. I describe this as a unashamedly modern building, a contemporary building. This is a close-up of that side elevation. This part here, by the way, is sometimes we refer to that area as an amphitheatre, but it's not really shaped like an amphitheatre. It's an external performance space. This is an important image in terms of the design ideas for the whole building. You'll recognise that building as the Memorial Arch, and this main arts building. The Memorial Arch has always been on an axis towards the main arts building. So I think what Grimshaw have done here quite well is, although it's a very modern building, very contemporary building, they've really emphasised that access. And if you go to site, you will really feel that. You will really see how powerful that access is. And that's important, I think. So when you're in that building, when you're in the Pontio building, you'll be able to refer up to the main arts building, refer down to the memorial arch. And in fact, this element here is glazed to make sure we keep that powerful view. The other aspect of this design, image, which is important, is it just reminds everybody that Theatr Gwynedd used to be in that location. And I hope everybody can see this dot, by the way. That area there is the old Theatr Gwynedd. And in fact, the energy centre for the new building will be inside, basically the basement of the old Theatr Gwynedd, with a new roof put over it, which is grassed. Incidentally, we recycled something like 93% by weight of Theatr Gwynedd, and the Students' Union reused it in this building, which is, I think, a positive thing. The reason I'm mentioning this is because you can see how the building is pushed right to the edge of College Park. So that's quite deliberate to push it to the edge of the park and to have a better relationship with the park. Three-dimensional image, just showing really the sort of mixture. I know other colleagues will be talking about the mixture of accommodation inside this building, but really it is a tremendous mixture. We have theatre, we have teaching, we have cafe, restaurants, we have Students' Union, we have innovation spaces, a tremendous mix of things going on there. And this drawing shows broadly where those different elements are sited. So the large block you see being built now in the front is the main auditorium, which will have a 450-seat lecture theatre on top of it. The area you see here is, at the lower level there is Teaching Room 1, which is a 200-seat teaching room, but also a fully fledged cinema. Above it is another 200-seat lecture theatre with retractable seating. Then here we have offices and shops and a restaurant above. Two main entrances to the building, here from Daniel Road and here with Memorial Arch behind you. I'm not going to dwell too much on these. It shows broadly the different levels inside the building. So it's a very three-dimensional building. You can see from the images outside how the levels are expressed, but also the levels are expressed inside the building. So you'll be able to see the different levels inside the building. This is, I think, because it's a multi-story building pulled across the hillside, you have lots of different things happening on the different levels. We have a basement, we have a ground floor, we have a mezzanine floor, and then we have this floor, which is arguably as important as the ground floor, perhaps even more important. The reason for that is because it's got a tremendous amount of different things happening. It's got access to the external performance space. It's got large foyer spaces, restaurant, it's got access to Teaching Room 2. Studio theatre, hugely important. The main auditorium is about 450 seat capacity, up to 486 capacity. Hugely important, but the studio theatre is also very important, 120 seat capacity, but allows rehearsal to take place without using the whole auditorium. We have a white box as well, part of the innovation space. That really is a nice floor. These are showing the different configurations inside the building. We have a whole level broadly for innovation, innovation on different levels as well, but one whole level largely devoted to innovation and Andy's work. Students' Union above that, a whole level for the Students' Union. And then right at the top of the building, we have a 450-seat lecture theatre and deliberately social learning spaces immediately adjacent to that. And there's a reason for that, because that reflects how teaching happens. Large groups break down into smaller groups. I'm not going to go through these plans in detail, though, partly because it's actually rather difficult to see. But I'm just showing you the different levels as you come up through the building. This is an image. We're working with an artist called Jessica Lloyd-Jones, a young Welsh artist from North Wales, absolutely fantastic artist. We're really enjoying working with her. She's got some great ideas about light, for example, and this reflects some of the ideas that we're working with. In fact, we met her this week, and we're speaking to lighting manufacturers with her to realise some of the ideas that she has. Some other ideas, working with Ellen's going to be talking more about Bedwyr Williams we're working with, but potentially working with glass inside the building and some of the internal windows inside the building, possibly forming part of public art. Na I droi'r Gymraeg o'n os di hynny'n oce am chydig. Y theatr yn bwysig ofnadwy, ond os ydych chi'n cofio wrach bod y theatr yn rhan hyblyg iawn yn y dyluniad yma, lle mae'r llawr yn gallu bod yn hollol fflat fel hyn, lle mae'r dalun yna dangos yr gwaglen yn cael ei ddefnyddio er enghraifft mwyn conference neu rhywbeth fel yna, ond bwysig iawn, da ni'n gallu hefyd newid y llawr i fynd ostwng lawr i'r basement i wneud o'n theatr draddodiadol eto. A mae hwnna'n rhan bwysig iawn o'r cynllun busnes, lle mae yna lot mwy hyblygrwydd yn yno. Y paneli da chi'n gweld ar y waliau yn bren calad, slats pren, mae'r sŵn yn mynd drwy'r pren yna, acoustically transparent, lle mae'r sŵn yn hitio'r waliau reinforced concrete. Ond dwi'n eithriadol o wyddus i wisio defnyddio pren calad Cymraeg. Da ni'n gweithio efo cwmni yn y sefydliad o'r enw Coed Cymru. Dwi wedi gweithio efo nhw o blaen. Dwi wirioneddol awyddus i ddefnyddio coed calad Cymraeg yn yr adeilad. Wrach rhywbeth fel yna, mwy o feddwl angen mynd fewn. Goeliwch chi neu beidio, o ran yr dyluniad yr acoustic, da ni'n mynd gallu cael slats pren yr union yn seis. Mae hynna, just hynna'n ei gwahaniaeth i'r sŵn. Mae gennym ni arbennig iawn ar y prosiect yma, Arab yn gwmni adnabyddus iawn. Hwn yn sôn am wahanol fodela am y theatr, allwn ni gael llwyfan sydd yn 8.2 o dymder neu fyny 11, allwn ni gael theatr in the round, bob math o bethau gwahanol. Un o'r pethau pwysica ydy, does a ddim fly tower yn yr adeilad yma, fel mae'n siŵr bod lot o'ch chi'n sylwi, ond mae gennym ni be mae'n galw'n technical grid, ychal 12.5 metres i'r gwylod, lle mae o'n hyblyg iawn o ran y technoleg yna fo. Hwn yn dangos darlun mwy detail o'r theatr. I bobl sy'n diddordeb mewn construction, wrach bod gen rhoi ddiddordeb mewn construction, mae'r strwythur adeilad yn ddiddorol. Mae Coleg Menai Llandrillo yn mynd i'r safle i ddysgu am engineering a pethau fel hyn. Ond er enghraifft, mae strwythur sy'n dal y prif ddarlithfa yn gorfod ista dros y prif auditorium. Tha stradlo fo. Ac o ran engineering mae hynna'n ddiddorol. I bobl sy'n diddordeb. Darlun o wrach sut fydd y theatr fach neu edrych fel ta 120 capacity, hyblyg iawn eto. Rhai darlunio tu fewn yr adeilad, hwn o'r cyntedd ar y llawr isa, y cyntedd wrth rwy'n fynd fewn i'r adeilad. Mae rhai o'r darluniau yma gyda llaw wedi newid, fydd y darluniau wedi newid chydig bach erbyn rwan, ond ddim gymaint â hynna. Mae hwn di'r lefel o'n i sôn am sydd yn agor i'r tu allan, yn y restaurant fan hyn, lle ydych chi'n gallu gweld y lefelau gwahanol tu fewn yr adeilad ag i lawr i'r adeilad hefyd. Un o'r lefelau uwch yr adeilad ag yn arall, a hwn jyst yn diweddu efo atgoffa pawb o beth sy'n digwydd. Iawn, diolch yn fawr.
Pnawn da, a mae'n braf gweld gymaint o'ch chi yma prynawn yma, gweud y gwir, i ni gael rhannu rhywfaint o'r weledigaeth artistig hefo chi. Nifer ohonych chi, dwi wedi bod yn siarad gyda chi eisoes ynglyn â syniadau a phrosiectau ar gyfer y ganolfa newydd. A nifer fawr o syniadau sydd eto i'w trafod wrth gwrs. Dwi'n dechrau hefo cymal sydd yn hot off the press, fel byddwch chi'n gweud, ar gan mor lan i geiriau yn bont i fyd o drysorau. A fe ddath honno allan o enau plentyn 10 oed sy'n aelod o sgwad sgwennu Gwynedd a grŵp ddath at ei gilydd dydd Sadwrn diwetha yn siop Pontio ar y stryd fawr ac yn cyfleu gobeithio yn aml iawn a barddoniaeth yn cyfleu llawer mwy mewn bach o eiriau. A un o'r celfyddydau wrth gwrs fydd yn cael I cynrychioli o fewn y ganolfan. Dwi am ganolbwyntio ar y celfyddydau perfformio a ffilm, ond mae lle i'r celfyddydau I gyd. Efallai nad oes lle pwrpasol ar gyfer celf gweledol, ond fe fydd yna fwrlwm ar draws y celfyddydau drwy'r adeilad. Reit. Nawr te, sneb wedi gweld hwnnw. Ond fe gaethon ni gyfle wythnos diwetha I fynd ar y safle a cael syniad o lle da ni arni o ran yr adeiladu, ac dyna fydd y theatr. Felly fedrwch chi ddeud heddiw bod chi wedi gweld y theatr yn y dyddiau cynnar, Dyna fydd y theatr, wrth gwrs, fydd yn edrych yn dra gwahanol erbyn i ni agor y mis Medi 2014. Mae Dylan, wrth gwrs, wedi crybwyll isiws beth yw natur y gyfodau. Mae gyda ni theatr amlbwrpas, studio theatr, cinema a man perfformio tu allan. Dwi'n meddwl bod hwnna'n bwysig. Wrth gwrs, i ni ddim yn ffodus iawn yn y wlad yma bod ni'n byw mewn lle mae'r tywydd yn hael wrth gwrs, ond dwi yn credu bod yna gyfleoedd i ni gael neud defnydd o fannau tu allan ar brydiau, yn wedig yn ystod yr haf efallai, pan bod pobl ar wyliau yn yr ardal, yn sicr fydden ni'n licio gallu archwilio y gofod hwnnw. Wi yn meddwl, a falle mae ar y pwynt yma ddylwn ni ddeud hyn, mae yna elfen o fyw gyda'r adeilad yn mynd i fod mwyn i ni gael deall beth sy'n bosib, a beth sy'n gweithio, a beth sy'n ddim yn gweithio. Wi yn cofio bod yn y lle yma'r blaen a rhagweld hwn a rhagweld y llall, a gorfod teilwro wedyn wrth bod rhywun yn byw ac yn adlu a teimlo'r adeilad. Bod rhai pethau falle ddim yn addas, a rhai pethau yn gweithio yn arbennig o dda. A mae'r gofodau cyhoeddus dwi'n meddwl yr un mor bwysig ar gyfodau perfformio, achos yn aml iawn mi ddaw rhywun i mewn i ganolfan, falle jyst i gael paned. Ac os yw nhw'n dod ar draws profiad creadigol neu celfyddydol am y tro cyntaf, mae hwnna'n gallu esgor ar egin diddordeb i chwilio ymhellach. A dwi'n meddwl bod hwnna yn werth i ni wrth gynllunio rhaglen. Mae dim ond yn y gyfodau perfformio, mae'r pethau difyr yn digwydd. Mae rhaid wrth gynhadaeth, dwi'n meddwl, a dyma yn fras, neu mewn un paragraff efallai be byddwn ni'n hoffi gweld yn y ganolfan. Yn bod ni'n creu rhaglen artistig o'r ansawdd uchaf posib, sydd yn arloesol ac yn uchelgeisiol, ond sydd yn berthnasol ac sydd yn cyseinio gyda'n cymunedau. A mae yna nifer ohonyn nhw, nifer o gymunedau, mae angen i ni fod yn berthnasol iddyn nhw. A mae ansawdd yn holl bwysig. Mae rhaid i ni gofio bod yr adeilad yma. Mae'r penseiri wrth gwrs Grimsio, nhw oedd yn gyfrifol am yr Eden Project lawr yng Nghernyw. Maen nhw yn uchel iawn i parch, maen nhw'n creu gwaith o'r ansawdd uchaf posib. Ac mae'n bwysig yn bod ni felly, unwaith mae'r drysau'n agor, yn gwneud yn siŵr bod yr ansawdd yn digwydd yn y cynnyrch da ni'n gyflwyno. Ar gyhoeddiad o bŵer y celfyddydau, ni gyd falle yn yr ystafell yma yn cytuno, a gweud y gwir, ar safbwynt bod y celfyddydau yn effeithio arno ni mewn modd positif ar ein bywydau ni. Be fydden ni'n licio meddwl yw bod gan pob un ohono ni'r hawl i damed o'r profiad yna. Mae rhaid i ni weithio tym bach yn galetach i gyrraedd at y cynulleidfaoedd rheini sydd allan yna a falle ddim wedi cael y cyfle i brofi y profiadau da ni wedi cael neu'n cymryd yn gyniataol. Ac ar hyn o bryd, mi yda ni yn Pontio yn ystod y cyfnod yma yn datblygu cynulleidfa ac yn datblygu cysylltiadau gyda'n cymunedau ni ac yn enwedig rheini sydd yn anodd i'w cyrraedd mwyn i ni baratoi'r ffordd ar gyfer yr adeilad pan agorydd i, fel bod ni yn tynnu y cymunedau falle sydd yn llai tebygol o feddwl bod y celfyddydau iddyn nhw, yn bod ni yn hargyhoeddi nhw damed bach ar y tro bod yna rhywbeth i bawb yn fan hyn. Eto, bod y profiad da ni'n gynnig o'r ansawdd uchaf posib. Reit, mae cyd-destun yn bwysig, yn dweud. A dwi'n meddwl bod eisiau ni gofio bod y lle mae'n mynd i fod ar agor bob dydd, drwy'r dydd. Mae bawb o bob oed. Mae perthyn a bod yn berthnasol yn holl bwysig. Mae rhaid i ni deimlo bod o'n rhywle i ni yn gallu teimlo bod gynnon ni berthynas hefo fo. Mae angen i ni deimlo bod y lle'n gartrefol. Da ni eisiau treulio amser yna. Da ni ddim eisiau just picio mewn a dweud helo neu prynu tocyn yn unig. Da ni eisiau treulio amser, efallai cael sgwrs, efallai mynd mewn i'r siop sydd yn yr adeilad, efallai mynd i fyny'r grisiau gael paned. Dwi'n meddwl bod angen i ni greu awyrgylch sydd yn gwneud i bobl dimlo bod nhw eisiau treulio amser yn yr adeilad. Mae'n ddifyr, gobeithio, ac yn gyffroes. Ochr yn ochr ar cyfarwydd, mae'r annisgwyl. A wy'n meddwl ambell waith wrth gynnig rhywbeth sydd yn gyfarwydd i bobl a cyflwyno'r annisgwyl ar yr un pryd neu yr cam nesaf neu'r ymweliad nesaf wedyn, dyn ni yn datblygu ac yn cynnig profiadau gwahanol i'r arfer falle. Cyfuniad eclectig o brofiadau. Fe welwch chi ar y diwedd fan hyn, a falle bod chi wedi gweld rhai o'r geiriau yma o'r blaen wrth bod chi'n pasio ar hyd lôn deiniol. Mae geiriau, mae'n eitha anodd i'w sgoi a gweud y gwir, a mi oedd hi'n touch and go o ran cael caniatad cynllunio, ond yn falch i glywed y geithon ni am ein pryd. Geiriau yw'r rhain, a maen nhw chydig bach yn rhyfedd agos at ei gilydd. Pam y geiriau yma? Wel, plant sydd wedi dod i fyny efo rhain, a deud y gwir wrthoch chi. Plant oedd yn teimlo mai dyma rhai o'r elfennau fydden nhw'n licio gweld. Dyma be oedd yn bwysig iddyn nhw. Rhywle cynnes, lle mae yna drama'n canu di hwnna fod. Mi ath Tudur Dylan i mewn i ysgolion a trio annog y plant i feddwl chydig bach yn llorweddol, chydig bach allan o'r bocs ynglyn â be mae'r celfyddydau'n gallu cynnig. Dydy drama ddim yn canu, nac di yn yr un ffordd a dydy dawns ddim yn gweiddi. Ond pam ddim, a dyma di'r pwynt, da ni'n gallu gosod y pethau yma wrth ymyl i gilydd mewn ffordd annisgwyl a mewn ffordd sy'n cyfleu syniadau newydd, a dyna di'r holl bwynt. A mi blanwyd y syniadau yma gan y plant yn y ddeiar, yn y sylfaeni o dan y gwaith adeiladu, a'r ffurf hada syniadau. Felly dyna di'r rhain, ambell i hadyn syniad, sydd gobeithio yn mynd i ddwy'n ffrwyth unwaith mae'r adeilad yn agor. Ddim bob un, cofiwch, yn enwedig ar helipad ar y tro. Ymdeimlad holistig, hynny yw, mae'r hyn sydd yn gynnyrch proffesiynol ar y llwyfan yn bwysig, wrth gwrs bod e. Ond mae'r un mor bwysig a gwaith cyfranogol gweithdi papedau yn ysgol Glancegin ar Brynhawn Dydd Iau. I ni, mae'r ddau beth yr un mor bwysig a'i gilydd. Dyda ni'n meddwl am waith ymestyn fel rhywbeth ymylol sy'n perthyn mas fyna. Mae ar yr un continuum yma. Dwi'n meddwl bod hwnna'n bwysig fel mater o gwyddor. Ti derbyn fydd Pontio. Hynny yw, dyn ni ddim yn mynd i fod yn creu yn cynnyrchiadau proffesiynol yn hunain ac yn teithio Cymru gyda nhw. Dyda ni ddim yn mynd i fod fel Clwyd Theatr Cymru neu Sherman Cymru. Be da ni'n gwneud ydy derbyn cynnyrchiadau fewn i'r ganolfan. Ond dydy hynna ddim i ddeud na fyddwn ni mewn amser yn cyd-gynhyrchu, yn cyd-greu, yn cyd-datblygu syniadau mewn partneriaeth gyda chwmnïau. Llwyfan, graddfa ganolig, dwi'n canolbwyntio fan hyn ar y theatr. Llwyfan graddfa ganolig. Pam gweud hynny? Wel, Fenyw Cymru yn raddfa fawr, mae Pontio yn raddfa ganolig a mae Galeri yn raddfa fach i ganolig. A mae hwnna'n bwysig, achos mae'n helpu ni ddeall beth fydd y gwahaniaeth rhwng y canolfannau hyn a be fydd y gwahaniaeth rhwng y math o gynhyrchiadau da ni'n gallu llwyfannu. Mae o'n golygu y bydd teithiau, drama, graddfa ganolig yn gallu dod i Pontio ar daith o Theatr Gwynedd, meddewch i fi, o Theatr Clwyd, i Aberystwyth, i Taliesin. Hynny yw, mi fydd hwnna'n rhan o'r circuit graddfa ganolig. Ond fe wedodd Dylan, wrth gwrs, mae'r theatr yn un peth, mae'r studio theatr yn elfen arall, a mae hwnna ar raddfa lai. Felly mi fydd na gynhyrchiadau gan gwmnïau proffesiynol rhanbarthol, cenedlaethol a rhyngwladol ar draws y spectrwm celfyddydol. A rhoi rhai esiamplau i chi, wrth gwrs, drama cyfrwng Cymraeg, drama cyfrwng Saesneg. Fe welwch chi rai o'ch logos, rai ohonoch chi sydd yma, prynhawn yma, i fyny fanna. Dyn ni'n edrych ymlaen yn fawr i'ch cael chi ar yn llwyfannau ni yn Pontio. Cerddoriaeth, cerdd byd. Nawr te, fel chi'n gwybod am y dyfan yma, prynhawn yma, mae o wedi bod yn datblygu rhaglen yn y cyfnod yma rhwng Cae Theatr Gwynedd ac agor y ganolfan newydd. Ac un o'r llwyddiannau ydy Cabaret Pontio, sef digwyddiadau cerdd byd sydd wedi bod yn digwydd yn neuadd Powys dros y blynyddoedd diwethaf. A mae Cabaret Pontio, dwi'n meddwl, yn un o'r elfennau yna yn fedrwn ni fynd hefo ni mewn i'r ganolfan newydd ac i fewn i'r theatr lle mae'r llawr yn fflat a gyda ni fyrddau crwn i alluogi ni i ail-greu'r bwrlwm fwy anffurfiol yna. A hefyd, lle i ddawnsio pan mae'r gofyn yn codi. Fe sylwch chi hefyd bod ambell i beth yn ymdreiddio drwy'r cyflwyniad yma hefyd, ambell i strand, neu ambell i elfen nis o'r aglenni fydden ni'n hoffi datblygu sydd yn rhywbeth falle sy'n neilltuol i Pontio. Opera chamber, enghraifft. Byddwn ni'n gallu gwneud opera in the round, fel maen nhw'n gweud, neu opera end-on, un pen i'r auditorium hefo Opera Canolbarth Cymru. Dyna ni mewn trafodaeth hefyd hefo Cwmni Opera Cymru ynglyn â rhai o'i gweithiau llai nhw. Cerddoriaeth boblogaidd ar gyfer myfyrwyr wrth gwrs yn holl bwysig. Eidfa. Mae dawns yn rhywbeth, mae rhai pobl yn dweud, dwi'n neud dawns, dwi'n dawnsio, dwi'n mynd i weld dawns. Mae yn rhywbeth sydd yn tynnu ar gynulleidfa, ond dydy'r gynulleidfa ddim falle yno'n barod i ni. Mae o'n gynulleidfa sydd angen i feithrin am eisiau gweithio hefo partneriaid i ddatblygu'r gynulleidfa honno. Ond fydda ni'n licio gweud, neu yn licio sbio ar y posibilrwydd o datblygu efallai rhyw fath o hunaniaeth neu USB ar ein cyfer ni y maes dawns awyr neu syrcas, dawns syrcas, sef syrcas gyfoes felly. Dim anifeiliaid, no ddim i felly, ond bod modd i ni ddefnyddio'r uchdwr yn yr adeilad newydd yma. A dod â chynulleidfaoedd, meddiwch i fi, dod â chwmnïau mewn sydd yn arbrofi y maes dawns awyr y dyddiau yma. Mae'n faes gyffroes, ond mae'n faes sy'n datblygu. A fydden ni'n licio meddwl mewn rhai blynyddoedd efallai gallai Pontio ddod yn rhywbeth o hyb ar gyfer dawns awyr yma yng Ngogledd Cymru. Gair llafar yn bwysig wrth gwrs, yn amlwg. Llenyddiaeth a barddoniaeth, nosweithio yng Nghymru, a chomedi. Mae comedi yn un o'r meysydd yma, bydden ni'n dweud sy'n cyrraedd pawb. A dwi yn ymwybodol bod ambell i gomedian yma na'n plith neu prynhawn yma ac yn weithgar iawn yn y maes. Fydden ni'n licio meddwl y byddwn ni'n gallu gweithio hefo hyrwyddwyr a perfformwyr yn y maes yma i sicrhau bod pawb yn manteisio. Mi gafwyd yn ddiweddar gyfle i weithio hefo cymdeithas improf, y brifysgol felly, y myfyrwyr. A mi oedd hwnna yn dangos bod yn fodel effeithiol iawn o gydweithio efo rhoi cyfle neu platfform i bobl ifanc i berfformio o flaen artist proffesiynol felly. Mae hwnna'n mynd i fod yn elfen bwysig iawn o'n harlwy ni. Teuluoedd yn gyntaf. Fynd yn ôl at gyrraedd at y rheini sydd ddim yn cael cyfleoedd, y rheini sydd ddim yn cael blas efallai brofiadau celfyddydol. Fe hoffwn ni weld yn bod ni trwy gynnig arlwy ar ffurf theatr arloesol misol yn y theatr fach yn bod ni'n meithrin cynulleidfa, bod ni'n tynnu teuluoedd lleol i mewn i brofi'r ganolfan. Fe'n rhywbeth sy'n rhan o'i bywyd bob dydd nhw. Dim rhywbeth maen nhw'n mynd unwaith y flwyddyn i weld Pontio, bod yn rhywbeth sy'n rhan o'r diet, os liciwch chi. A wedyn mae yna siamplen fanna wrth gwrs o'r cwmnïau. Wedi sôn am a blatfform i ddoniau ifanc, mae hwnna yn holl bwysig. A fe welwch chi rai o'r bobl i ni isios yn gweithio gyda nhw. Bugs Bangor, People of Bangor Community Group, ysgolion wrth gwrs, a mi'n ymwybodol mae Canolfan Gardd William Mathias yma, prynhawn yma. Mae'n bwysig yn bod ni'n cyd weithio gyda asiantaethau a hefyd efo chwmnïau sydd yn meithrin talentau ifanc, fel yn bod ni ddim yn mynd ar yn cwys yn hunan heb fod yn ymwybodol ar hyn sydd yn mynd ymlaen eisios. Dwi wedi twtsio nawr. Chi'n gallu gweld restart later. Sori, oedd hwn ddim bod digwydd. Na fe. Reit, dwi'n watcho'r amser yn mynd ymlaen hefyd. Sori. Next. Iawn. Cyfleoedd artistig yn dod â'r celfyddydau gwyddoniaeth ynghyd. Eto, dyma chi faes lle mae Pontio'n gallu gosod i stondin. Fydd rhai ohonoch chi'n ymwybodol efallai am gynhyrchiad cerebellium gynhaliwyd yn ddiweddar oedd yn dod â neurowyddoniaeth a theatr labyrinth at ei gilydd ar gyfer profiad, fel fyddech chi'n gweud yn Saesneg, immersive. Ac oedd hwnna yn llwyddiant ysgubol. A fydden ni'n licio gweld y math yma o gynnyrch yn cymryd i le yn y ganolfan unwaith i ni agor. Profiad oedd yn galluogi'r unigolyn i gwestiynu i hun, i fodolaeth, ethics, moeseg, ac yn wir cael profiad theatrig o wneud hynny. Welwch chi hefyd dementia a'r celfyddydau, eto yn faes sydd yn hynod o un o'r meysydd yma sydd yn cael ei grybwyll llawer ac yn cael ei drafod ac yn ei gyd yn mynd yn hun. Felly dwi'n meddwl bod hwn yn faes eto sydd yn mynd i fod yn bwysig i ni wrth edrych ymlaen i agor yn y ganolfan. Sinema wedyn, chi'n gwybod bod yna ofod ar gyfer sinema. Dyma un o'r ffurfiau ar gelf mae pawb yn disgwyl amdano fe'n eirgar yma ym Mangor. A gwyl ffilm a chyfryngau ffres yn dod ato ni yn Chwefror 2015. Mae hwnna ar y gorwel. Celf cyhoeddus, bedwyr wrth gwrs. Dyna chi esiampl dda i'n to ifanc ni. Artist rhyngwladol yn byw yng Ngogledd Cymru. Mae'n gweithio hefo ni ar waith celf cyhoeddus, syniad o ail-greu caban yn y tirlun ar ei newydd wedd, sy'n ysgogi'r syniad yna wrth gwrs o'r lle y man cyfarfod gynt yn chwareli wrth gwrs. Cai golau fel wedodd Dylan ynghynt. Mae hyn i gyd yn rhan o'r gwaith dyn ni wrthi yn ei drafod ar hyn o bryd. Dyma i chi syniad yn sbio lawr ar y cai golau. A mae'r hadau syniadau yna fydd yn y tirlun ac o dan y sylfaeni yn mynd i ddod allan ar ffurf y cai o ole. Welwch chi wedyn bod y symboliaeth yr syniad yma yn parhau. Mae'r rhaglen presennol, wrth gwrs, fyddwch chi wedi cael copi ohono fe, mi fydd yna raglen yn ystod yr hydref, ond mi fyddwn ni newid ger wedyn, achos wrth gwrs mae angen recrwtio, mae angen hyfforddi staff, mae angen paratoi ar gyfer yr agoriad, mae angen i ni ymgyfarwyddo hefo'r adeilad, mae angen i ni dreulio amser yn trefnu diwrnodau agored yn eich gwahodd chi mewn i brofi'r adeilad, a mae hwnna'n bwysig yn rhan allweddol o'n gwaith ni. Agoriad meddal Mehefin, Gorffennaf 2014 a'r rhaglen agoriadol Medi i'r Rhagfyr 2014. A'r thema fydd, fel ymbarel dros y cyfan yn y tymor cyntaf yna, fydd lle chi, neu llechi. Falle bod dim llechi yn yr adeilad, ond mi fydd na lechi yn fan hyn. Datblygu cynulleidfa, fi'n ymwybodol bod yr amser ddim yn ymlaen, felly bod fi wedi hen fynd os yn amser. Fyddwch chi ddim yn cael mynd o me heddiw, heb fod yn ymwybodol bod yna gynhyrchiad anferth yn dod i Fangor ganol mis Gorffennaf. Bianco no Fit State Circus ar ffordd y traeth. Mae hwnna'n allweddol i ni yn rhan o'r strategaeth i godi niferoedd bas data ar gyfer Pontio. Mae hwnna yn rhan strategol o'n datblygu cynulleidfa. Os nag oes ganddon ni'r data yma, dyn ni'n methu cysylltu efo chi i adael chi wybod am ddigwyddiadau. Dyma ni rai o'r esiampl o ddatblygu cynulleidfa. Welwch chi'r rhadau bach yn mynd i mewn i'r tir. A mae yna sialensau, rhaglenni ar gyfer adeilad, chi ffili weld yn iawn eto. Mae angen i ni weithio mewn partneriaeth, mewn hinsawdd economaidd sydd yn heriol. Mae yna gyfle trwy weithio hefo'r Prifysgol, i ni sydd yn gweithio yn y celfyddydau i werthuso yr hyn dyn ni'n neud ar ffurf ymchwil. Mae yna fwy o alw arno ni dyddiau yma i ddangos beth yw'n gwerth ni, a dwi'n meddwl bod hwnna'n gyfle wrth fod yn rhan y Pontio, a mae eisiau ni gyd weithio i gryfhau'r sector. Bywedodd Danny Boyle, sy'n gynfyfyriwr y Mangor, bod theatr yn holl bwysig. They create communities, and what they provide is something else to believe in, something in our towns and cities that isn't Wetherspoons and walkabout pubs and Mario Balotelli and John Terry. Nawr, lle rhain o'r chi sydd yn fans pêl-drod, dwi'n gofyn am eich meddeiant chi, ond chi'n dall beth sgynnau. Hynny yw, mae hunaniaeth yn bwysig a mae rhaid i ni fod a'n hunaniaeth yn hunain. A dwi'n meddwl bod gyda ni ymhontio y cyfle i hynny ddigwydd. A dwi'n am orffen efo Gedd, dwi'n falch bod Gwen di cyrraedd. Lle mae Gwen? Diolch Gwen am gydweithio ar hwn di sadwrn diwetha. Beth oedd oedran y plentyn ar greu hon? 10. 10 oed. Dwi am orffen hefo'r brawddeg ola, yr pennill ola. Gorffen taith yw dechrau'r nesa. Cyrraedd nod, clywed nodau, a'r gan mor lan I geiriau yn bont I fyd o drysorau. A diolch Lina Tris, 10 oed o chwilog am hwnna. Diolch.
They'll introduce me, and my name's Dr. Andy Goodman. My background, I should mention, is predominantly technical, yet I've increasingly become involved in more artistic and more creative exercises that involve multidisciplinary teams. In thinking about what to present today, it would have been easy for me to focus very much on the technology and the tools that will certainly enable innovation in the sector, but I felt it probably would not be an appropriate focus. Just as a test of that, can I ask, if you've heard of a hack space, could you raise your hand? Hi. How about a fab lab? Okay, so there's a few. Well, certainly John at the back there. So I think perhaps there is an appropriate choice to focus more on the people in the presentation than the tools themselves. Although at the end I will mention an emphasis on how we will apply the tools. So this is a photograph of a board in Google Campus in London, central work, and it serves as an example of the sort of environment that we want to create in Pontio. It says here the ideal environment for growing businesses. Growing in both senses, growing in the kind of passive sense of the company growing in their life, but growing in the sense, active sense of we're going to give companies some energy, some impetus, and support, provide structures, processes, and tools to help them grow. We don't yet have a space in that that I can point to. The building isn't quite at the stage where I can show the internal skeleton of the design space. So I have a few photographs here that perhaps convey a sense of what we're trying to achieve. In the top photograph, it's worth noting that the attention is very much on the individual, focusing and delivering on a specific task perhaps that has been assigned. Whereas in the bottom photograph, the emphasis is very much on sharing. It's between these two extremes that we have to increasingly facilitate interactions between people from different disciplines. At one point in Ellen's presentation, I think he said co-creation, co-production. He didn't mention co-design, but I think one of the problems that we face here are the words and sometimes the language we use to try and communicate with each other. And certainly the space will be a place for co-creation, working together. And crucially through co-creation, through making we hope to understand the needs of various end users and stakeholders as we progress through this development. An example of a space a colleague has designed here is to kind of show the sense of the different types of spaces for different types of work. The building has been designed, the interior space has been designed to afford a diversity of different interactions, different types of production, so that we can draw in different types of people and engage in ways that are suitable to them, using a language, both linguistically, but also using visual languages, pictures, animation, visualization. Also, the language of physical objects. When we see that, we know where to pick it up, how the language informs us of what we need to do. So essentially, the space is about bringing people together, co-create, co-produce, co-design, which leads to innovation. And the tools, processes, and techniques that support that. So trying to point out there are other aspects, which is like sadly academic predisposition. I thought some pictures of people using an equivalent space might give you a feeling of what we are trying to do without focusing too much on the tools. And it's worth noting here that despite these students are at the London School of Economics and they're looking at innovation policy, yet you'll see in those classes that they're doing that through constructing together a model of what they're trying to innovate. Instead of discursive and critical approaches, by making together, we're able to develop a shared language and inform decisions more. So space systems, you'll see a diversity of interactions with people working with different ways. And I'll point out ones I think are the most salient and important to this presentation. Well, first of all, notice there are a number of groups here working in parallel, possibly on the same time. Here you see a plenary session with on the left-hand side, someone facilitating graphically, so that there is a visual representation of the conversation as the discussion proceeds. This helps us track back what we discussed 10 minutes ago, form connections, bridge between different ideas. Again, just to emphasise here, the London School of Economics is playing master's. Perhaps here, trying to interpret the language of these physical objects, looks to me like there are some bridges. You have to be part of the conversation, language and direct. But nevertheless, we increasingly see in education environments, and if you saw the apprentice class, also in business environments, the process of design is shown to be very useful in people bringing people together, making assessments of who we go to work and another rather complex diagram that might correspond to interactions and structures for information flow. These are the sorts of more abstract ideas that can be explored through making rather than describing. More visuals, smaller teamwork, noted in the background technology being used to present media. Oops. People there working together, yet not. Simple things actually here. A TV screen, a printer, a video player, some blocks, some plants. What's the significance here? Well, you can't see it, but all these walls are all on wheels. It's crucial when we're coming together as a team to innovate, to make decisions, to inform design solutions to problems, that we're able to use and access information quickly. So having tools on wheels, having tables on wheels, having spaces that can be reconfigured becomes very, very useful. Here we see a different configuration, but much the same tools. And again, the different configuration affords a different interaction between the participants, which is crucial to forming different views. I think Michael, an academic at MIT has said, Michael Schrager, that in order to innovate, we just have to make different prototypes. And to make different prototypes, we have to interact with each other in different ways and use different tools to produce those different prototypes. So, just, there's a whole range of different interactions there that have been taken from a comparable, creative, collaborative learning environment at the London School of Economics. Now, a specific programme that has been developed here over the last 4 years. So far, we've put 200 students or so through the programme. 4 commercial partners have been involved. And it would take probably an hour to describe or to try to convey what the experience of going through this is. And I found that even then, the experiential nature of the programme is such that I still fail to communicate it. So, what can I suggest? Well, I'll describe just briefly the 4 petals, incidentally extending perhaps on some of the notions of hada, idea seeds, the notion of growth, trying to develop an artistic or a narrative around this. This flower defines almost in entirety the process we follow. Around the outside, we have, from the top left, you have science. We need to involve science to test, to propose theories of how we might perceive. Moving on then to the right, top right, we pass on the analysis, that knowledge, the technology that's created out of it to engineers. Engineers then take that technology and they add functional value to it. And then they pass it on to the next petal, which typically are creatives, designers, artists, who are able to take something that is functional and make it desirable. They understand human nature perhaps a little more clearly than engineers might do. So the designers, the artists, they add a human value, if you like, to what the engineers provided as functional value. And then finally, in the bottom right-hand corner, we have business. Crucially, if we're going to have innovation, we have to have a viable business case for the proposal that we're going to try and market. So it's a combination of these different perspectives on a problem that, when considered together, through making, through modelling, not just through the abstractions of language, but actually prototyping quickly, that we can more readily innovate. And also, by having prototypes en route, we don't just have specialists within this mix, we can also have the end user, customer. So making it the process more participatory, bridging the gap, if you like, between the fantasy of what might be to the reality of handing over a product to a customer to validate the ideas that you're proposing. These sorts of processes are very much central to what we're going to be doing in the centre. There's a range of examples I could mention, but I'll mention another one here, Tesla, because this is something that is just kicking off now, and I'd just like to raise attention of what we're doing. Tesla is it means transnational ecosystems, laboratories and actions. Nikolai Tesla also is a fantastic engineer, but basically it is 7 institutes and business support organisations from around Europe, all delivering different business supports that are aimed at high potential startups that want to have high potential for growth and export to foreign markets. While there are, for example, procurement, finance, internationalisation, a whole range of things, we're focusing very much on 2 deliveries that are aligned with the design and innovation aspects of the centre. First of all, we're going to be creating a creative industries network with the European Business Network in Brussels that will be underpinned, supported by a social virtual collaboration environment. I'm sure you're all aware of, to varying degrees, of Facebook, Google+, Twitter, etc. Increasingly, we're using these to share information, and the tools are becoming very, very powerful. So, first thing is we're going to be building networks, focusing very much on the expertise we have in the university, which is around electronics and computer science, combined into interaction design and hacking interaction designs for example, if you can think of the Nike Plus or some of these energy bands, increasingly we're getting devices that connect to smartphones. That's just going to proliferate. Increasingly, there's going to be a whole range of different ways through which we interact with information. So it's through this new product design action with a local engineer and designer, we will start to build a competence in this particularly important area. Okay, just to summarise a little bit about tools. If there is a philosophy that underpins what we're going to buy, it's aimed towards the general idea of improving human experience. Okay, it's very abstract. So, in considering that, so what constitutes, what builds, if you like, what is experience comprised of? Well, when considering that, it's our senses, light, sound, and touch, the physical objects being the 3 perhaps most dominant in what we're doing. So we will have tools that are across that spectrum, and we have spaces in the centre that will focus on the physical product, media, animation, visual production, and sound. We have a range of tools across that spectrum, and crucially, with the new technologies emerging, they will be underpinned by digital technologies that will allow connections between them. So increasingly, we'll be devising, dreaming of a world, and then creating a world where our interactions with it are influencing it, and the physical and information environment around us feeds back into us and changes the way we behave and interact. And in that process, we'll learn which technologies are feasible, can be made, are viable, will make money, and crucially are desirable. People will want to use them. And it's those kind of 3 final aspects I think it really summarises the concept that I think underpins the innovation aspects, and that's design thinking. And if you want to ask me some more about that afterwards, then please do. I look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Nes I ddechrau efo prosiect Pontio rhyw 4 mlynedd yn ôl. Ro'n i'n rhan o'r tîm wnaeth alunio'r cynlluniau busnes greiddiol, astudiaethau dychonoldeb greiddiol. O'n i'n rhan o'r tîm wnaeth paratoi y 2 o'r 3 cais wnaeth ni submitio i Lywodraeth Cymru, Cronfa Strwythurol Ewrop. Erbyn hyn, dwi'n gweithio 100% o'n amser ar y prosiect Pontio. Dwi'n gyfrifol am adnabod y sicrau ar cyllid achwanegol ar gyfer y prosiect, ymgysylltu yn bydd deiliad ni ac ymgysylltu ehangach. So dyna fy rôl i. Wel, mae'r byd yn newid yn tydi i bawb, mae'r hinsawdd yn newid. The world's changing, isn't it? The academic world is changing just as much as anywhere else. And just wanted to set you a little bit of context for Pontio and what's happening in HE. It's no longer enough just to talk about blue skies research or excellent research, but everyone is talking these days about research that has benefit, that has impact. And Research Council UK, this is a slide from them, it's very difficult to read, but some of the points that they're driving academics towards these days are the socio-economic benefits of research. Some of them here. Improving health and well-being. Enhancing research and our capability, not just for the university, but for other organisations as well. Environmental stability, environmental sustainability. How is research contributing to these? Increase of public engagement with research, not just in terms of how do we speak about the research that we do, but how do we involve? How do we get involved in that research? Not just at the end, not just at the middle, but maybe at the beginning. What about the research question itself? And cultural enhancements. Ellen's already mentioned Cerebellium, which is an immersive theatre experience where people came and experienced elements of neuroscience, but within a maze or within a labyrinth setting, which really sort of shook the mind. The other piece of information in terms of the climate change, if you like, within HE and across the UK, there's a drive to engage. And I've crystallised or tried to condense the, I guess it's a manifesto for engagement. This manifesto comes from the National Coordination Centre for Public Engagement, which is funded by the Research Councils, it's funded by Wellcome, and it exists to encourage universities to engage. So it's about universities and research institutes having this, facing up to this responsibility to link and listen. There's a really important word in there, which is to listen. And I love the expression that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we should use them in that proportion. Sometimes we can be guilty of preaching, but not really listening to the answer. So engagement is a 2-way process. I just thought I'd show a nice picture of our lovely environment there. Beautiful. That's from last year. It's a bit slower this year, actually. They haven't quite come out yet. This is just to give you a flavour of the funding for Pontio. This is where the capital funding has come. We've got £15 million of strategic capital investment funding from the Welsh Government. What's that largely about? Well, a lot of that is about wider socio-economic benefits of the Pontio project. What's it going to do? How's it going to reach out? What about skills? How is it going to help the skills agenda? Then we have ERDF, European Regional Development Funding, Priority 1, which is about innovation. Andy's already talked about the innovation space, some of the activities that are going to take place there. And then Priority 5, which is around the community building. Again, how is the building going to be used as an asset? The same fund actually helped fund some of the regeneration work in Bangor High Street. And then the Arts Council. And again, for the Arts Council, there's a significant element of that work is about outreach and engagement. It's about audience building, reaching out to new audiences, and developing audiences, developing new things, new experiences. So engagement, you can see it's a big part of what we're talking about. Okay, and I should mention others, of course. Mon and Menai, which is helping to fund part of the studio theatre and the we have a social learning space. Andy showed some pictures earlier on of some social learning facilities, and Garfield Weston, which is a charitable foundation, partly towards the studio theatre. So we have, when we put the project together, 5 investment objectives, which I'll run through very, very briefly. Regeneration and Buddeiliad. How is the building and all the associated activities going to hit the local economy? Innovation, of course, we've talked about. The skills agenda, and I'll talk about some of those things in a short while. Arts and culture. And lastly, but not leastly, community. How's it going to engage with all sections? We say community, but it's really communities, isn't it? There are many communities that we deal with and we reach out to and we engage with. Not just in terms of innovative activities, which we've heard about, but cultural activities as well. Excuse me. So Pontio, to bridge. And Pontio seeks to bridge between many different areas, and we've touched on some of these. The university and wider community, arts and sciences, different academic disciplines, students and the broader communities, the upper campus and the lower campus, Welsh culture, international culture, linguistic barriers, and so on and so forth. And the university is doing loads of these things already. It would be kind of wrong for me to stand up here and say that Pontio is going to change all this. Pontio isn't going to change. The university is already doing stuff. But what Pontio will do is actually going to deepen these things. As somebody said in a meeting that I was in yesterday, it's more than a building. It's a Pontio state of mind. And I quite like that phrase. So it's a way of thinking. It's more than just the hardware, if you like. So then, how do we engage, and how do we connect up? How do we bridge? How do we reach one another? Well, I don't know if you remember. Some of us remember the Channel Tunnel, and you probably know that when they built the Channel Tunnel, they started they started digging on one side and they started digging on the other, on the English side and the French side, and of course they met in the middle, and good job too. And I love this phrase, which was from one of the chairman, I think, of the group, and it was about how we can bury our differences when we meet, when we need to, and I think that can be an analogy.
Sorry, the restart things come up.
Oh. How rude of Windows to interrupt. Yeah, technology. Anyway, so. The point is that bridging or tunnelling or whatever, it takes planning, doesn't it? And it takes planning not just from the one side. If you only plan from the one side, you never quite know where you're going to land. If you're building a bridge, let's say, if you plan from either side, you need to talk, you need to communicate. And if you don't, well, I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if that's a real slide or whether it's kind of a Photoshop, but anyway, it looks pretty disastrous. You can see what happens. Different expectations, and in order to manage those and understand one another, then communication is the key. And that's why, and that's part of today. That's part of why we're here. Okay, I just want to talk now a little bit more about some of the activities, ideas, programs that are already happening and will happen, and the buildings will be very, very much a central part of enabling those things to happen. Ellen's already spoken about the arts programme. It's well underway, and it's bridging again between what was and what is and what will come, and that's well established. But there are other activities. Andy has talked about Enterprise by Design, which is already bringing students together from a wide variety of disciplines with academics, and bringing them together with business and all these different communities to work together on real life challenges. So, as part of the broader Pontio thing, we are considering how we might expand and enhance the level of interdisciplinary research. And to that end, as a university, we've appointed 2 academics who are working, part of their time will be spent actually identifying opportunities that exist within the university, not just, if you like, ideas that come from those groups, but ideas that come from outside those groups in an interdisciplinary manner. This is unusual, believe it or not, for academic departments to work across those boundaries. There are all sorts of issues there that need to be facilitated in order to make that happen. So just a few of those projects, which have been, some have run and been very exciting. We had a project that's looked at dementia in the arts. I think this, is it spun off the edge there? Yeah, dementia and the arts. So that project is very much a sort of a combination of arts and science. It's brought our dementia unit together with practitioners who are working who've actually discovered skills to work within care homes and have built their knowledge base. And out of that's come all sorts of different things like film. We had a film out of it and so on and so forth. And that's been very exciting. We have a Centre for Wellbeing, for Behaviour Change, which has just sprung up. And why not use Pontio? Why not use the building and the building project and the programme as an opportunity to research what we do? And so we have a proposal at the moment to look at what is the impact of this programme, the communications, all the things that we're doing on the thought processes, the opinions of our cultural thought leaders locally. And can we measure that? Can we track it? Can we look at the outcomes and so on? And so that's a project that capitalises on the fact that Pontio is happening. We talked a little bit about the concept of enterprise by design and bringing different forces together to work on real life challenges. And that's going to happen within the building. It's a great way of engaging with companies and with individuals. Students who've been on the programme say that it's been transformational in terms of their own skills and understandings of one another, of different subject areas of the world of business and so on and so forth. And some of them have kind of got many ideas that they then want to go on and develop commercially. A social enterprise accelerator is another project which does something similar, but it does it around the notion of, social enterprise. What's out there that needs to be responded to? Students came together to explore social enterprise. Many of them had never heard of social enterprise. And so it was a light bulb moment for some of them that they realised that social enterprise was a model by which you could generate capital, as it were. And some of them went away and said, this is what I want to do with my life. The key here, though, was that they co-designed their journey through this programme. They decided what they wanted to do. It was outside of the accreditation of the university. It was done voluntarily. They were motivated. It was powerful and good. And building on those dual concepts, we want to take those things beyond the walls of the university. About 2 or so years ago, we started talking with Esme Fairburn Foundation, a trust who have a very strong interest in working, particularly with those who are underprivileged and young people in particular. And we discussed with them how some of this design-based, co-designed learning, experiential learning, working with local providers, working on real ideas together could actually be a very useful and powerful tool to work outside of the walls of the university. And after much consultation and considerable levels of discussion with local partners and grassroots organisations and with Esme themselves, we have launched, or we're coming up with, and have had a successful bid for some money to actually put wheels underneath that project idea. So for 3 years, we're going to be exploring how do we take these design concepts and take them outside. And it doesn't have to be a physical thing. It can be a challenge facing a local community. And we're going to be working with some of the local employers. We've had strong interest from Wolver and from other local employers and other organisations to do that. We've already got some experience of doing that, and my colleague Ellen is sitting at the back, and I'm sure she'd love to talk to you afterwards, with a project called Panopticon. And Panopticon was an Arts Council funded project, and it worked with young people who were in school, but they were experiencing difficulties. Maybe they were falling a little bit outside of the education system. Maybe they were they'd gone into on the wrong side of the law or whatever. And they worked with a company Fran Wen, I think it might be here today, and Surgery Dar, and we worked together on a project where the young people created a drama, which was about the surveillance society. So we have some experience of working in that area. So Need to Work, which is not really going to be the title. Need to Work is a working title for how we're going to take the stuff that Andy has begun to do and take it outside the walls. And it's a working title. The title name is up for grabs, actually. I don't like defining people by what they don't do. Neat. It's not a great title. But anyhow, we have the title. It was given to us by one of the people that we consulted with. So we kind of felt that we had to go with it. Anyway, we want to take that program. We want to deepen the experience that young people are having in terms of real life activities. So we're going to be doing that over 3 years. They'll be facing challenges in groups, working on real challenges, real life things that they will actually come up with themselves to do. And we're going to actually use Pontio as a test case. We're going to use the building as a test case. How could they become involved in the building? And particularly with a view, perhaps initially towards arts and culture, and help them to explore opportunities. And we're going to do all this with grassroots partners, because you might say, well, what's Bangor got? We've got resources, but we know that other people have better expertise in these areas, and we're going to work together with people, and we've already, obviously we've considered the discussions around that to identify those partners. Excuse me. And there will be more. So what do we bring? Well, I was mentioning earlier about the research aspects of the university. We have things to bring to that experience as well, not just in regard to things like psychology, but also well-being and mindfulness, education, aspects of business, social sciences, environmental science, lifelong learning, where we have a community development program. So there's a number of things that we can bring. So it's a synergy. That's what we're aiming for. And as I mentioned earlier, my colleague Ellen, do you want to just shove your hand up? There, she's at the back, is our project manager for this, and she's got a lot more information than I am. It's a shaping program, and we need help, and we're going to be asking for help and input, because we can't do it on our own. It's that thing about a two-way street. So I'm kind of winding up now to the end, you'll be pleased to know. So ma byd yn newid yn tydi. A mae yna lot o feisydd I chi gyd fod yn ymwneud â ni. Fel mae Dewi wedi sôn amdano yn barod, da ni yn ceisio sefydlu nifer o grwpiau, pobl sydd efo diddordeb I gydweithio hefo ni. Hefyd, da ni'n keen iawn I recrwtio gwirfoddolwyr yn y siop hefyd. Fel da chi'n gwybod ella, mae yna siop, mae yna bresenoldeb ar y stryd fawr. Ond dwi'n gweld y siop na fel proto-Pontio, os liciwch chi. Lle I brofi rai o syniadau, lle I gyfarfod. Mae yna stafell bach yn nghefn y siop. Gobeithio fyddwn ni defnyddio stafell yna ar gyfer y math o weithgaredda dwi wedi bod yn sôn amdan gynharach. Mae yna nifer o ffurflenni dros nesaf os da chi yn awyddus iawn I arwyddo efo ni I helpu ni. Ond mae hyn sawdd yn newid yn addysg uwch. Mae Pontio yn rhan o'r peth. Mae Pontio yn mynd I gyfrannu. Mae Pontio yn mynd I bod yn lle I arddangos pethau mae'r brifysgol yn ei wneud. Ond nid jyst hwnna, mae'n lle I bobl ddod I mewn ac yn cydweithio ac yn ymgysylltu ni ac I ni yn cysylltu a phawb a gwahanol cymunedau sydd o'n cwmpas ni yma ym Mangor. Dwi'n licio sleid ôl yma, cos mae'n jyst atgoffa fi o'r plannu hadau syniadau, sef Mae yna gymaint o syniadau yn tydi, mae yna gymaint o bethau. Pob bore dwi'n codyn, dwi'n meddwl o'r gannoedd y syniadau fedrwn ni wneud fel prifysgol. Os fedrwn ni ddod, os gallwn ni dod â gwahanol sgiliau, gweithgar arbenigaethau efo ei gilydd. Mae Pontio yn gyfle, mae Pontio yn gyfle yn catalydd hefyd i ddod â gwahanol syniadau efo ei gilydd. Dwi'n chemist ydw i, felly dwi'n meddwl am mewn telera Brownian motion. Dwi'n yn gwybod os ydych chi yn cofio'r y dyddiau ysgol, lle oedd molecules bach yn symud o gwmpas, yn y gwrs maen nhw'n gallu reactio efo'i gilydd. Ond os ydych chi'n cynyddu tymheredd, ydych chi'n cynhyddu pwysau, os ydych chi'n cynyddu nifer o ingredients yn y pot, mae'n bosib cael mwy o interactions, mwy o reactions efo'i gilydd. A dyna sut dwi'n gweld Pontio, dyna sut dwi'n gweld engageio, ymgysylltu â phobl. Felly, so diolch yn fawr iawn am eich amser, a'r diolch yn fawr iawn am rando. Fydd yna gyfle i siarad hefo ni a gofyn cwestiynau ac ati, a wedyn lluniaeth wedyn.